Your Beatitude, Cardinal Basilios Clinis Catholicos of the Maragara Catholic Church. His Beatitude, Basilios Thomas I, Catholicos of the Maragara Syrian Orthodox Church, is on his way. He has informed that he crossed Ejumanu, and so we can expect him here in a few minutes. This is Alexander Thomas, Professor Dr. Muriel Devi, Reverend Dr. Jacob Tekebertil, Dr. Thomas Kunemakul, Reverend Father Raju Parakot, and all the distinguished guests who are participating in this memorable 30th World Syriac Conference. So we are on the verge of the completion of this year's conference. I have gathered from many of the participants here their impression about this conference, and I am happy to report that all the participants are really happy about conduct of this conference. Let us thank God for His wonderful mercy. My responsibility here is to welcome all the dignitaries assembled here. His Beatitude, Cardinal Basilios Clinis Catholicos, needs no introduction in the Christian world. In his span of lifetime, his elevation from Mukut Church to the cardinal position in the Catholic Church is really a wonderful history. I think his Beatitude has expressed his preeminence among all the bishops in Kerala and outside. His Beatitude has his own way of handling things. I remember the day when he was elevated as the cardinal in the Catholic Church. He was not envisaging a program of the Malangara Church or the Catholic Church in general, but it was an occasion for all the communities in Kerala. Your Beatitude, you are setting a new example to the leadership in Kerala churches. So also your support to all the humanitarian works that the Malangara Church is doing, it's really commendable. And also your educational and other societal leadership gives you a special place in the history of the Malangara Church. With all humility, I invite Cardinal Basilios Clinis Catholicos to our midst to give the presidential address. His Beatitude, Basilios Thomas I, Catholicos of the Maragara Syrian Orthodox Church, is an unparalleled dignitary in our society. He is kneeling down to the floor in his humility, and also at the same time he is strong and he is has conviction for his vision. His beatitude will be reaching here in a few minutes. In his absence, let me extend our warm welcome to his beatitude. Justice Alexander Thomas needs no introduction. He was part of us all these days, and we heard him today morning, and he is an eminent personality in the judicial world. Justice Alexander, you are invited to this floor. Professor Dr. Muriel Devi from the Institute of Research and History of Text, Paris, France, is also welcome to this finale. His beatitude, Basilios Thomas first will be delivering his benedictory address in Malayalam, and after his speech, Sarah Knight, who is a Malayali but now coming from UK, will be giving of the gist of that message in English. I welcome her too. I welcome all the esteemed members here, especially those who are on the dais and also assembled here on behalf of the coordination committee of this World Syriac Conference. Most humbly, I welcome each and everyone who is participating in this voluntary function. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your very warm welcome address. We now call upon His Beatitude, Cardinal Basilios Martinus Catholicus of the Syriac Catholic Church, to give us the presidential address. Praise be to the precious name of Jesus, our Master and Lord. Our esteemed guests on the dais and my dear friends, for me, this is an occasion in which we all reinvigorate our Christian life and witnessing, especially in the context of the present trials and tribulations in those places where Syriac Christianity is being practiced, especially suffering great tortures physically and even spiritually. I bow down my head in respect to those Christians in those persecuted areas of our Syrian churches, Iraq, Iran, Libya, and so forth, Lebanon, the Middle East as a whole. I respect them for the courage, Christian faith in depth that they witness to bear the name of Jesus, even at the point of death. The Syriac Conference is being held here in this particular emotional context. 2 months back, I had the fortune to visit the Holy Land. We were at the way of the cross, Via Dolorosa, and I saw a big group of people making their way of the cross. Most of them were crying, not literally reciting the prayers, were crying. And I asked, where do they come from? All were from Iraq. We joined them. Some of them came to me seeing my dress code to get the blessing. And they were speaking, sharing their agonies. This conference, the 8th Syriac Conference, the national one, is specifically important because of its contextual mission. The places where Christianity or the Syriac spirituality is being lived is under terrible tension. The question is, are we going to miss it? Are we going to lose this sacred tradition of the descendant? Unfortunately, people think the Western world, or even at the Byzantium, people think Roman tradition and comes only Byzantine tradition, the Christian world. Somehow, this third land is forgotten. The Syriac ethos and tradition, which kept even the Byzantium in its entire meaning and depth. Therefore, this context is specifically focusing on to revitalize, reinvigorate an ethos which led the Christendom by our reflections, by our Syriac spirituality, and by our theological explanations of the sublime reality. First of all, I wish to thank all of you, the great scholars of the Syriac spirituality, I must say, for all your contributions, the great responsibilities that you have taken to enact this ethos into Christian life. We have a lot of great scholars, and I understand all of you have taken pain to come over here, even financially. You paid your ticket from your pocket. Because it is so important to have this Christian ethos, the Syriac spirituality, meaningful and significant for many more years. May the Lord continue to be at our side. May the Holy Spirit continue to shower His light and blessings to this particular branch of Christian life, to practice the meaning of its depth and significance. And I am informed that from Sydney to California, we have the full representations here. From Australia, from Japan, from Malaysia, from China, from Lebanon, from Syria, from Iraq, Turkey, Germany, Belgium, France, Italy, Romania, Ukraine, Holland is no more called Holland, the Netherlands, Holland, Switzerland, Austria, United Kingdom, Canada, USA, Ethiopia, Norway, Sweden, Singapore, Indonesia, Philippines, and India, of course. We have, if I have missed somebody, please excuse me. We have representatives, I must say, Syriac scholars from all these countries. We have professors from especially noted universities in Rome, in Paris, and in many other places of importance. His Beatitude, Amun Basilius Thomas I Catholicos is arriving. Let us give him a big hand. On behalf of Seeri and on behalf of all of you, may I extend his beatitude. Abundor Basilios Thomas First Catholicos, a most cordial welcome. When the wise man comes, we have to stop. So it is time for his beatitude to speak, so I stop now. We have with us his beatitude, Catholicos Basilios Thomas First, the Catholicos of the Syriac Orthodox Church here in India. As Kyriakos Holy Co-Episcopal are welcomed, a prelate with great energy to be humble and strong simultaneously, to lead the church. And his beatitude was, by the providence of God, was the men who assembled and did the election of the new patriarch of the Syrian Orthodox Church. And the new patriarch is Holiness Patriarch Abraham Karim II, was elected and installed, and his beatitude was the principal celebrant of the Sundroniso of the new patriarch. And he is a promoter of our Syriac spirituality, Syriac studies, and a promoter of Seeri as well. And we are extremely happy that he is with us today, this afternoon. And my dear friends, we have to reinvigorate the Syriac spirituality to the mainstream of Christendom. I'm extremely grateful to the Almighty for a place like this in our church, Syri. And Father Jacob, as we call him with respect, Malfono Rabo, a great scholar and a committed Syriac student even now, promoting Syriac studies, thereby Syriac spirituality in this country. I thank him most sincerely for all his commitment to promote this ancient and most authentic spirituality of the Christendom by enabling a lot of people to come to the Syriac studies. We have a lot of Syriac promoters like Father M. P. George, who is known to everyone, who is available to every Syriac churches for his leadership. He comes to our church to teach our young seminarians and all of us to have this melodious praying of the Syriac prayers in the Syriac spirituality. This is where we really live ecumenism. Not only discussing the things which always separate us, but enacting something positively to bring us together. And Seeri does it joyfully, and I believe by the will of God. May Seeri continue to be a source of inspiration for uniting all of us, all the Eastern churches,
to have the full communion and thereby reliving the forgotten Syriac ethos. May the Holy Spirit enlighten you all, the great scholars of the Syriac churches, and your commitment to promote Syriac spirituality, so that we have once again the Syriac spirituality lived in the midst of trials and tribulations of the Syriac-speaking people, Christians, who are part of our community and belief. The Catholic Bishops' Conference of India, of which I happen to be the president of the conference now, I wish to express our solidarity and prayerful support to all our fellow Christians, brothers and sisters in those most affected areas of Iraq, Iran, Libya, and all the Middle East part of the afflicted ones. May the Spirit strengthen them. We are humbled looking at their faith, their faith. Some of the pictures I have seen, some of the descriptions I have read. It is really remarkable to speak out, to stand up and say, I believe in Jesus. I continue to believe in this precious name, and I don't mind even if I have to lay my life for that. And we greatly appreciate and we thank the Lord for such great, courageous Christians, sometimes who are not seen in the most developed countries as well. May God bless you. May God bless Seeri. May God bless the Syriac commitment to the entire Christianity. Thank you, and kindly pray for me.
Your Beatitude, thank you for your inspiring and moving words. Before the benedictory speech, I think that His Beatitude Cardinal Basilius Martinez is going to present to His Beatitude Basilius Thomas I. Here we are. A copy of the Taxa de Cordono, which has just been released. It was prepared for the 8th Syriac World Conference. It's in Syriac with an English translation, and it has been beautifully produced and is also available in the shop. We now call upon His Beatitude Basilius Thomas I, Catholicus and Actors Syrian Orthodox Church, to give the benedictory speech. He will speak to us in Malayalam, and then afterwards Mrs. Sarah Knight will give us the summary in English.
സ്റ്റേജിൽ പുരുഷരായി അതിഥികൾ പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് ജസ്റ്റിസ് തോമസ് അലക്സാണ്ടർ അവരുടെ പേരെടുത്ത് പറഞ്ഞിട്ട് അവരുടെ മന്ത്രി എത്തിയിട്ടുള്ള പിതാവായ ഡോക്ടർ മധ്യസ്ഥ ഞാനിന്നിവിടെ വന്നത് ലോകത്തിൻ്റെ വിവിധ ഭാഗങ്ങളിൽ നിന്ന് എത്തിച്ചേർന്നിട്ടുള്ള അതിഥികളെ പുത്തൻകുരിശിൽ സഭയുടെ ആസ്ഥാനത്തേക്ക് ക്ഷണിക്കാനാണ്. അതിൻ്റെ ചുമതല വന്യ മുല്ലയിൽ കുര്യാക്കോസ് കോറെപ്പിസ്കോപ്പായി ഏൽപ്പിക്കുന്നു. അദ്ദേഹം അതിഥികളുടെ സമയവും മറ്റും നോക്കി എന്നെ അറിയിച്ച് സഹായിക്കണമെന്ന സ്നേഹത്തോടെ ഈ ലോകത്തിൽ ഏറ്റവും കൂടുതൽ മനോവേദന അനുഭവിക്കുന്ന 4-5 പേരെ തിരഞ്ഞെടുത്താൽ അതിലൊന്ന് ഇപ്പോൾ ഞാനായിരിക്കും. എനിക്ക് വേണ്ടി പ്രാർത്ഥിക്കുക. സിറിയയിലെയും ഇറാഖിലെയും അതുപോലെ ലോകത്തിൻ്റെ വിവിധ ഭാഗങ്ങളിൽ ഇന്ന് നടക്കുന്ന യുദ്ധവും അതുമുഖാന്തരമുള്ള ഗതികളും ദുരിതമനുഭവിക്കുന്നവർക്ക് വേണ്ടി വളരെ വിനയത്തോടെ ഞാനും എന്നോട് ചേർന്നുള്ള ദൈവമക്കളും പ്രാർത്ഥിച്ചു വരുന്നു. ഇപ്പോൾ പ്രാർത്ഥിക്കുകയും ചെയ്യുന്നു. എല്ലാവരെയും പ്രാർത്ഥനയിൽ ഓർക്കുക. മറ്റെല്ലാ വിധത്തിലും ആവുന്നിടത്തോളം സഹായിച്ചു കൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്നു. ഈ ഇരിക്കുന്ന അതിഥികളിൽ ഒരാളുടെ നേരെ എൻ്റെ ശ്രദ്ധ പഴയ ഭാഷയിൽ പറഞ്ഞാൽ കമ്മീഷനിരിക്കുന്ന ഒരാളവിടെ ഇരിക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. അദ്ദേഹം എവിടെ നിന്ന് വന്നയാളായാലും അദ്ദേഹത്തെ കണ്ടപ്പോൾ ഒരു കൗതുകം തോന്നി. ഞാനൊരു സന്യാസിയായി തീരാൻ കാരണമായത് സുറിയാനി ഭാഷയാണ്. മലയിൽ കുറച്ച് നേതായുമായിട്ട് ബന്ധപ്പെട്ട് അവിടെയുള്ള സന്യാസ ശ്രേഷ്ഠരോട് ബന്ധപ്പെട്ട തന്നെയാണ്. സുറിയാനി ഗീതം കേൾക്കുമ്പോൾ കാലിൻ്റെ പെരുവിരൽ തുടങ്ങി നെറുകന്തൽ വരെയും കോരിത്തരിക്കുന്ന ഒരനുഭവമാണ് അന്നും ഇന്നും എനിക്ക്. പള്ളി കുദാശ പട്ടംകുട വൈദിക വെള്ളമൊക്കെ തുടങ്ങിയുള്ളതൊക്കെ ഈ ക്ലെമിസ് ബാബയ്ക്ക് തോന്നുന്നത് എന്താ ഈ മനുഷ്യനെ പറയുന്നത്. കാണാപ്പാടം പഠിച്ച് ചെയ്യുന്നതല്ലാതെ അത് നോക്കി വായിക്കാൻ എനിക്കറിയില്ല. പക്ഷേ എല്ലാം ഞാൻ നിവർത്തിക്കുന്നു. 86-ൻ്റെ അത്തിളക്കം കൊണ്ട് ചിലപ്പോൾ ചിലതെല്ലാം വിട്ടുപോകുമെന്ന് മാത്രമേ ഉള്ളൂ. ക്ഷമിക്കണം, ഞാൻ നിർത്തുകയാണ്. ഈ സമ്മേളനത്തിലേക്ക് എന്നെ ക്ഷണിച്ച ഐക്യപ്പച്ചൻ തുടങ്ങിയ അദ്ദേഹത്തിൻ്റെ സുഹൃത്ത് ഭാരവാഹികൾ എല്ലാവരോടും വളരെ വിനയപൂർവ്വം നന്ദി രേഖപ്പെടുത്തി എനിക്ക് വേണ്ടി പ്രാർത്ഥിക്കണമേ എന്നപേക്ഷിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് വിദേശത്ത് നിന്ന് വന്നവർ മാത്രമല്ല എല്ലാവരും വരുന്നത് സന്തോഷമാണ്. മലയിൽ പുറപ്രസ്കോപ്പാണ് ചെയ്യട്ടെ. ഈ സമ്മേളനം, അതിൻ്റെ പിന്നിൽ ഈ മഹാപ്രസ്ഥാനം തുടങ്ങിയവരോടുള്ള എൻ്റെ സ്നേഹവും കടപ്പാടും വെളിപ്പെടുത്തിക്കൊണ്ട് എനിക്ക് വേണ്ടി പ്രാർത്ഥിക്കണമേ എന്ന് അറിയിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് എൻ്റെ വാക്കുകളെ ഉപസംഹരിക്കുന്നു. ദൈവം അനുഗ്രഹിക്കും.
We ask to thank you for giving the benedictory speech. Mrs. Sarah Knight will now give us a summary in English.
With the permission and blessings of His Holiness the Catholicos, His Beatitude the Cardinal, His Gracious the Bishops, Most Reverend Kottayam, Reverend Priests, Fathers, Monks, Justice Alexander Thomas, I stand here and speak this short summary of His Holiness' speech. First, he invokes the triune God's blessings on this gathering And then he says, I am here to invite a dignified guest to the Catholic headquarters in Putin Cruz, and I entrust Mullen Atu to inform you on the direction to this headquarters where I reside. And then His Holiness goes on to say, with great sorrow, if you count 4 or 5 people in the entire world who are greatly pained, count me as one of them. Pray for me, for what is going on in northern Iraq, eastern Syria, and Lebanon, and that region is beyond what words can express. Please remember that in your prayers is His Holiness's exhortation to us all, and also to do whatever you can in other ways. Now, coming to the singing in Syriac, His Holiness says, when I hear you singing Syriac songs, I experience a shiver of excitement from my toes to the top of my head. I have been saying these prayers in Syriac since my seminary days, not because I could read very well, but from having learned them and from memory. Even now I follow this same practice. I offer my gratitude to be here to address you today. I am so delighted that you have come from the 4 corners of the earth and make this conference and the organizers, especially Father Jacob, prosper in the work that they do, and may you all be blessed by the triune God. This was the summary as I understood.
Mrs. Sarah Knight, we thank you for conveying the important message of His Beatitude to us. Thank you. We now have the felicitation address, which will be given by Justice Alexander Thomas, who is no stranger to us in this conference.
Cardinal Catholicos of the Malaga Syrian Catholic Church is yet to the Catholicos of the Malaga Syrian Orthodox Church. His Grace, the Metropolitan of the Malaga Syrian Orthodox Church, Professor Sebastian Bloch, Dr. Abdul, Archbishop John Frederick of the Free Church of England, and all the distinguished scholars and delegates of this Seeri World Syriac Conference 2014, and my dear brothers and sisters. Today morning I shared certain random ramblings regarding the role of a language like Aramaic or Syriac in the reconstruction of our old theologies since the time of post-enlightenment. To reconstruct those old theologies and spiritualities, and to use this language as a tool for the reconstruction of the theology and spirituality that is, and for building up a praxis which is relevant in the modern contemporary world, which is in tune with the spirituality of our ancient seers like Saint Ephraim, so that on the high tables of world religions of today, including the religions of India like Shankara's Advaita or Buddha's, and the religions of Buddha and Jaina, our Christianity can also sit in the high table and have dialogue with such siblings for promotion of sibling religions and spiritualities, for the promotion of world peace and harmony. Today, I think, at this moment, I would invite your attention to the role of this language, the language, the mother tongue of our Lord Jesus Christ, which is the language of the mother of our Moran Ishra, that is Aramaic or Syriac as the case may be, in whichever way you would describe that, as a tool for development of a cultural disarmament, for promoting intercultural dialogues, interreligious dialogues, and interreligious dialogues. As most of you would know, the history of the Christian church would have by now passed through 5 major epochs. Some theologians would classify it as the age of witness, 2, the age of conversion, 3, the age of the Crusades, 4, the age of mission, and now we are on the threshold of the age of dialogue in this postmodern world. And through interactions with other religions and cultures, we in general have come to realize that Christianity can not only serve but also learn from many of these other sibling religions. Many of them are willing to offer themselves as serious partners in an open dialogue, though not without understandable distrust on the part of other religions. There is a realization, drawing upon many sincere Christians, that dialogue is not yet another strategy, but an open process for mutual enrichment and for getting better acquainted with each other. Any dialogue means a sustained conversation between parties who are not saying the same thing and who recognize and respect the differences, the contradictions, and the mutual exclusions between the various ways of thinking. The object of dialogue is understanding and appreciation, leading to further reflection upon the implication for one's own position of the convictions and sensitivities of the other traditions. We need to dispassionately see the opposition with its challenges, deal with them without surrendering any one of one's own integrity or diminishing the content of one's examined convictions. Such a basic love has to proceed before any reconciliation of ideas and beliefs. The loving that is expressed through the attempt to listen, and the language and to understand, and honor to the frank recognition and appreciation of the convictions that deny one's own through the opening of one's imagination to the real otherness of the other is the function of inter-religious dialogue and intercultural dialogue. Religions, ideologies and cultures have kept themselves off in hundreds of years of isolation and suspicion. Such a blissful isolation, steeped in ignorance, is no longer possible nor tenable, and aggression as in the past is no more sustainable. There are various suspicions lingering in the hearts of many, and they should not be shoved aside as irrelevant. Since every religion is historically determined tradition of a response to what the Spirit of God has forever been setting upon human beings' eyes, we must be open to find that each religion has become a self-consistent and almost closed system of culture and language. Communication between one such system and another is fraught with a difficulty which must not be underestimated. We need to move forward, and in such an attitude, we can look for a partial convergence to the horizon for the understanding on the two sides. As a result, there may arise a new common horizon for the partners in dialogue, even the emergence of a new world with new possibilities and understanding, and thus the disclosure of new theological, spiritual, and philosophical dimensions. In March 2013, His Holiness Pope Francis spoke on interreligious dialogue as follows, quote, "The Church is aware of the importance of the promotion of friendship and respect between men and women of different religious traditions. I will repeat this. The promotion of friendship and respect between men and women of different religious traditions. The Church is also aware of the responsibility that we all need to bear to this our world, to all of creation, which we should love and respect. But we can do much more for the good of the poorest, for the weak, suffering, to promote justice and reconciliation, to build peace and harmony. Above all, we must keep alive the thirst for the absolute in the world, not allowing a one-dimensional vision of the human person in which humanity is reduced to that which it produces and consumes to prevail. This is one of the most dangerous pitfalls of our times. The churches should take an active role for bringing in genuine peace in destination regions like Israel, Palestine, Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, Iran, etc. The recent bold utterance of His Holiness Pope Francis that my God is not a Catholic gives tremendous hope and faith for each one of us to go forward in this great adventure in our times in the quest for peace. The great thinker, philosopher and theologian, Professor Seeri has contended that peace requires more than nuclear, military or disarmament or economic disarmament, and that peace can ultimately be obtained only by cultural disarmament, which requires that absolutism be abandoned for true reconciliation through ongoing cultural dialogues. He has said effectively that peace cannot be won or achieved through our struggles, but is something which is only to be achieved as a gift. As the great Buddhist work Dhammavada has said, I quote from the text, conquering we engender hatred, conquered we suffer, with serenity and gladness we live, if victory and defeat are overcome. The world's inhabitants are clearly not only interdependent, but simply unable to achieve peace. Intercultural dialogues, interreligious dialogues, and inter-religious dialogues will be the means to vanquish the Dvaita and the duality between victory and defeat, leading to the Advaita and aduality of peace and interdependent coexistence and harmony. Recently, one of the suggestions put forward in the peace initiative taken by the Church of Sweden in the resolution of the Israel-Palestinian conflict scenario was to make it compulsory for all citizens of the proposed Israel-Palestine unified state to learn Hebrew and Arabic, so that all the Jews have the advantage and disadvantage of learning a new religion or the other, namely Arabic, and all the Palestinians have the advantages and disadvantages of learning and understanding the language of the other, namely Hebrew. In this regard, for promoting cultural disarmament in the other places of West Asia and Middle East, I think promotion of Arabic and Aramaic would be an ideal solution, at least in the long run, for promoting cultural disarmament and for engendering peace and harmony in the Middle East and West Asia. When I shared this idea with one of your scholars, namely Dr. Werner Arnold, a professor in the Heidelberg University, I think he has just left us now from Kottayam. He told me that in the hadith of, which is the oral sayings of the Prophet Muhammad, he said he has exhorted one of his closest disciples, Ibn Thabit, to go and learn Syriac. And Ibn Thabit heeded to the advice of Prophet Muhammad and went away and learned Syriac. Therefore, in these great times of turmoil in the Middle East, we should be even-handed and we should be promoting a just solution of the problems not only faced by Christians, but also to resolve the problems faced by our Palestinian brothers in the Israel-Palestinian conflict scenario. Now, to come to the future scenario of Syria, I am told that the Syria has been in existence for the last more than 2.5 decades. 2.5 decades is a pretty long time to think in terms of the next stage of development. The Constitution of India guarantees to citizens among its various fundamental rights, not only the fundamental right to religious and linguistic minorities to establish and administer any educational institutions of their choice as enshrined in Article 30 of the Constitution, but Article 29 also explicitly provides for protection of the interests of minorities. And Article 29(1) envisages and contemplates that any sections of the citizens residing in the territory of India or any part thereof having a distinct language, script or culture of its own shall have the right to conserve the same. It's now by now been established through historical research that Syriac language was an integral part of our culture and liturgy among the religious communities of the Indian Kerala Syriac churches. And therefore, to protect the precious and valuable heritage and legacy of the Syriac culture and language is inbuilt for us, and it is guaranteed in the Constitution. And it is about time that all the Syriac churches should think in terms of promoting and endeavoring to take all earnest steps to get the Seeri established as a deemed university as contemplated under the University Grants Commission Act. We may have to put in a lot of effort for this, and I exhort each one of you that this may be the solemn moment for us to take this great resolve, especially when Father Jacob is quite healthy and strong with us, to think in terms of taking the next giant leap forward, so that in about 2 years' time, we have things in place, and by the time the World Syriac Conference 2018 is organized here, this becomes a reality. We may have many problems of deficiencies in terms of the infrastructural norms, but those are problems to be thought of and resolved with great grit and determination. I have seen the common appeal made by each one of the delegates of this conference to the Syriac churches in Kerala. We should also call upon all the churches, Syriac churches in Kerala, to bridge and transcend all their differences and think in terms of putting in their energy, be it financial and all other resources, to make Syri truly a product of interdenominationalism, so that all the churches contribute their resources and might for getting the Syri established as a deemed university. One of the smallest Syriac churches in Kerala, maybe after the Kottayam independent Syrian Malabar Church, is the Syrian Malangara Syrian Catholic Church. But your church is blessed with a lot of resources and assets by the providence. It's for you to take the leadership and convince all the other sister churches to come forward. And in this age of great challenges, let us show through our praxis our resolve to put into practice true ecumenism by the promotion of such scholarship in the field of Syriac and Aramaic studies. I call upon all the authorities that be to put in their unified focus in this direction, so that we get the Syri established as a deemed university under the University Grants Commission Act. I am quite happy to note, as told by Father Jacob, the director of Syri, that the central government of the day had with very great lightning speed cleared the proposal for granting approval for the holding of this conference. We have the Honorable Minister, who is a friend and patron of Syri. The Honorable Chief Minister is a native of Kottayam. You should all put it together, your focus, to convince the authorities that we, whether we at the state level, the university level, or at the central government level, to make this reality, to make this dream a reality in the next 2 to 3 years, so that in 2018 we have Syri functioning as a vibrant deemed university. With these words, may I wind up and may I extend my heartfelt thanks to Father Jacob and to all the organizers of this conference, and I hope to see all of you in 2018 for the World Syriac Conference at Syri. Thank you.
Your Justice, thank you for your very informative felicitation address and for your very constructive suggestions. We now come to the part of the programme where we seek evaluations of the conference. Professor Dr. Muriel Devier from the Institute for Research and History of Texts will begin the process, and then we will invite probably up to 3 participants to give a 2-minute evaluation of the conference. These can be very productive in that it can help to plan for the future, and you might have some constructive suggestions to offer. But we'll kick off, as we say, with Professor Muriel Devier. Thank you.
Gratitude is an immense smart readings Catholicos, Cyril Valankara, and patron of Syriac, president of the session. Your gratitude, Basilius Thomas I, Catholicos, Valankara Syrian Orthodox Church, who blessed us with introductory speech. Your Grace, our dear Thomas Markolios, president of Syriac. Honorable Justice Alexander Thomas, High Court of Kerala. Your Graces, Excellencies, Monsignori, Fathers, Sisters, Brothers, colleagues and participants, all the students and friends of the Seeri and of Syriac. It is a great honor to stand and talk here in front of such a distinguished assembly in order to give the first, and I will show you a brief evaluation of this conference. Since our friend and colleague Alain Devereaux was prevented from coming by health problems, Father Jacob asked me, as a French representative of the Society for Syriac Studies in Paris, to give his evaluation. He knows as what I will do, that Alain Devereaux's inimitable style will not be replaced and cannot be replaced, so I shall try to do my best. It is actually a very agreeable and easy task to make an evaluation of such a successful conference. We have been wonderfully welcomed and treated here in Syria, and I give in our behalf our deepest thanks to all the people here who made things possible and who they took care of our needs and desires and even beyond that. So thank you very much. And we have been also wonderfully welcomed and treated by all the Keralese churches. And it was a great opportunity for people coming from the West to discover the different churches on the spot and to share the worship in Syriac with them. Which makes the knowledge of Syriac more lively and more personally understood by each of us. So this visiting the evenings and the roadshow Sunday common was something really important during this conference, I think, in order to know better not only the Western and Eastern churches, but also the distinctive traditions here in Kerala. So that was a great achievement, I think, for all of us coming from abroad. If I may say a few words about the importance of being here in Syria as a place of the teaching of Syriac, not only as a language, but as the language in which the liturgy, the Bible was translated, but also many texts were produced, is so important for us. And especially in the difficult times of Syriac patients in the Middle East. That owes much to the energy and commitment of Father Jacob Tekeparampil, who not only started the seminary here, the ecumenical seminary, but also built a wonderful library for the study of Syriac. And not only that, but drawn here people not only from different parts of Kerala, from different churches of Kerala, but people from all over the world, as you heard before, the list of people coming from almost everywhere. And that is something that is a wonderful achievement. And much the warm personality of Father Jacob Talampi, who, wherever he goes, tries to induce people to learn Syriac, to come to Syri, even sometimes from the jails of Kerala, as a Frenchman experienced last year, when he gratefully exchanged a few weeks of detention for the study of Syriac, of which he had never heard of before. So it goes even to that. So that is something I wanted to point out. And linked to that is something I think is new in this 8th Syriac World Conference. Is a link established with Ethiopia and the Ethiopian tradition, thanks again to Father Jacob and also to Father Daniel Asefa in Addis Ababa. We had a number of communication and presentations about the links between the Syriac and the Ethiopian tradition, and that is something quite remarkable. That started last year during a conference organized in Addis Ababa, and goes on not only during conferences but with young deacon coming from Ethiopia to study Syriac here in Kerala. So these new links between Ethiopia and India are also something I think new and remarkable during this conference. And of course, the high level of scholarship during this conference has to be underlined. Not only the conference went very smoothly, in spite of the fact that there were more than 80 presentations in 2 different rooms, and everything was wonderfully organized, but it was also a very interesting conference for all what people could present, whether women or men, lay people or clerics, people from here in Kerala or from abroad. And this level of scholarship is something very important that was the mark of the previous Syriac conferences and remains the mark of the Syriac itself as a place of study and a place for the conferences, and the reason why so many people actually gather here. So this session was very interesting also on another ground. Quite a great number of young scholars came to present their work on Syriac, but it was noticeable that there were less presentations about theology and the Bible, and more on other fields of Syriac literature and tradition, which is something good, because of course the literature is central and the Bible is central, but if they have been better studied than other fields of Syriac literature, of course Ephraim and Marsai and Jacob Asaro had a share in the conference because of the importance of the work and because they are treasures of the Syriac heritage. But especially young scholars are interested in other fields, such as apocryphal literature or medicine, astronomy, history, herbology. All the fields of Syriac literature were represented during this conference, and it reminds us that the bishops and even the Catholical and Orthodox of the churches, the monks in ancient times actually studied medicine, astronomy. They read the Greek fathers as well as the Syriac ones, and they translated, commented upon the text, and have enriched the Syriac tradition. And that is something that was done also during this conference, the enrichment of the Syriac tradition by the study of the text And it is something much desirable that alongside the preservation of manuscripts, which are endangered, beside the cataloging programs that give better knowledge of what is in the manuscripts, there are more editions and translations and commentaries of Syriac texts, which are still sometimes in very well-known libraries in the West but are understudied. And to publish those texts in order to make them better known, in order to reveal the richness of the Syriac tradition broadly. I know that in the academic field, the edition of texts is something that is not fashionable at the time being, but it is something still very desirable, because it's very important to protect manuscripts, but it's also maybe even more important to read what is in the manuscripts and to make them known to a broader audience. So, to conclude this brief evaluation, I would like to say that this conference was really representative of all aspects of the Syriac tradition on a scholarly level, but it was also embedded in the living churches in Kerala. I was thinking about what was going on in the Middle East, and thinking about what happened in 363 when Ephraim the Syrian had to leave Nisibis, who was held back to the Persians, and Ephraim, but also all the Syrian Christians who were living in Nisibis, actually had to cross the frontier and took refuge in Edessa and in Arida. What did it mean in the end of the Syriac tradition? It meant an flourishing of the studies in a different context, and we may hope that the present situation will see what happened in the 4th century. I mean, but later on, the population actually went back to Nisibis, who was again repopulated with Syriac-speaking Christians. And at the same time, the flourishing of the Syriac studies elsewhere, in New Edessa, New Amidas in the world, as well in the West as here in the East. And let us hope that the pearl of the Syriac tradition is handed over to future generations who all are only healthy.
Professor Seeri, thank you so much for your evaluation. So we now leave it open to the floor. I will ask people to introduce themselves. Be as concise as possible. Please don't repeat what has already been said. We've heard it. So if you have something new to add in your evaluation, please do so. So introduce yourself. Have I any volunteers who would like to speak? 1, 2, anybody? I think we can up to 3. Is there time for 3? Okay, let's start.
Your Beatitudes, distinguished guests, colleagues, and friends, at the conclusion of this wonderful 8th World Syriac Conference, it gives me great pleasure to say that we have had indeed a feast of Syriac studies, very enriching during the past few days in almost all genres of Syria: history, hagiography, manuscripts, grammar, and so on. Indeed, this has been a wonderful occasion, which has brought together a large number of leading scholars and students of our beloved Syriac language from different parts of the world. To be concise and brief, needless to say, this has been achieved due to the very hard work, enthusiasm, and exerting tireless efforts of the organizers, headed by Father Jacob and Father Raju. I know that I speak on behalf of all my colleagues, both present and absent, in saying that your hospitality has exceeded all expectation, particularly the way that you have welcomed us, made us comfortable. I've never ceased to admire your energy, humbleness, and modesty. As for some very brief suggestions and recommendations, first, I wish to reiterate a couple of brief suggestions I made from this very place at the last symposium held in 2010. First, the introduction, if possible, of a Christian Arabic course as part of the curriculum offered at Seeri. During the past few days, we have heard so much of Arabic texts, manuscripts, Karshuni, and so on, that have a very close affinity to the very Syriac subject matter we have been discussing. Similarly, in my view, a biblical Hebrew short elementary course would be indeed very beneficial for the study of biblical texts and commentaries in both Syriac and Hebrew. A third one, very briefly, issuing a statement to be endorsed by the participants of all the participants of this conference in view of the very dire situation in the Middle East, Iraq, Syria, my own country, Egypt, Lebanon, and elsewhere, I think would be very beneficial to raise awareness of what is happening, the dreadful situation for our fellow Christians in the Middle East. Finally, and very briefly, on behalf of myself and all our overseas colleagues, may I offer our hearty congratulations on the success of the conference, and also to express our gratitude and thanks for the way you welcomed us, for your generous hospitality. May God Almighty bless this institute and long live Syria. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Kottayam.
I am Father John Motengi, a Jesuit priest who was professor of philosophy for many years in Pune. Now I am retired, but I continue to live in Kerala, come back from Pune, and continue my researches in philosophy, Indian philosophy, and in Syria. As a participant in this conference, I have only admiration for the organizers, for the meticulous attention they have given to every aspect of conference, academic, social, and ordinary day-to-day life, and above all the liturgical life, which is a very matter which is specially to be mentioned. As for suggestions, I have a couple of them. One, Syriac tradition is to be studied of course, there is no doubt about that. It is one of the three great traditions of the Christian tradition. But it should also meet contemporary problems of human beings. And for that, we should develop a theology based on the Syriac traditions. That will be a contribution not only to the Kerala Church, but also to the Universal Church. And now for this purpose, my concrete suggestion is that the Seeri should take the leadership to organize in alternative years a conference on Ephraim's work and his theology, and also Jacob of Saru. The two writers, how they can be concretely organized, needs to be studied by the authorities of Syria. Secondly, I urge most earnestly to start a conference regular annual conference of Kerala Syrian scholars. This will bring to consciousness their heritage, their desire to study these things, and above all, they will be able to contribute to the Kerala Church, to its life, and at the same time also to the Universal Church, and also to the wider world of culture. I believe if Ephraim is studied properly and translated in a poetic way in Malayalam, he will stand on a par with the great Kalidasa. Kalidasa was the greatest poet of Sanskrit. Above all, we must also think that, realize that the Indian intellectual tradition has not taken cognizance of Christianity. We are not, the Syrian Christians in Kerala have been well integrated into social life. We hold good positions. We have success in every aspect of our life and so on and so on. But the real intellectual tradition of India, if you read the works of Shankara, for instance, Shankara fights tooth and nail against the Buddhists with arguments, precisely. And it is generally accepted that Buddhism was defeated because of Shankara's argument. But in Shankara's works, we find no mention whatever of Christian theology, of Christian concept of religion and so on. That means we have never been active at the highest levels of intellectual life. And that is the same case with other disciplines at the highest level in the Indian intellectual tradition of India. We should study the Syrian tradition, and especially Ephraim has much to say even to the contemporary world because of the way he theologizes, not merely rationally, but by symbols, but by other way in which he takes into account the whole of human being. And in this way, we could bring also the Syrian tradition into real life and use it. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Pavel Ganati, University of Graz, Austria. Just 2 words. I could repeat all the praises that being said here. We don't need to hear that. We know how wonderful this experience was. Only 2 proposals. One is addressed to my fellow colleagues of the European, North American, and Australian University. Try to think of more systematic academic support of Syria. And the second thing, I will ask your Beatitude, for the cause, and the Cardinal, please support as we have been doing this series. Thank you very much. Time for one more.
I'm Erica Hunter from the School of Oriental and African Studies in London, senior lecturer in Eastern Christianity. I don't wish to repeat the generous felicitations that have been extended to Father Jacob, but to develop a much more practical level and to say he's a great teacher, not only in Syriac and Syriac culture, but in also the skills of organising a conference, which are not inconsiderable and we have had a wonderful time. It's not easy to gather together the truly international community of scholars, which is a testimony to Jacob's skill, and also the great national gathering of scholars. And I think that's extremely important, that we have meetings where international and national scholars are able to mingle and talk with each other, listen to each other's papers, because yours is, your beatitude, the living heritage which us scholars in Western universities appreciate. But the prime task is to recognise and work within these living traditions. And I think Father Jacob achieves remarkable success and is a paradigm for those who are keen to organise conferences to follow his example. Thank you.
Colleagues, I am Father Abdul from Holy Spirit University of Castile, Lebanon, head of the Department of Sacred Art and head of the Department of Syriac Studies. I am here to evaluate. It was really a great symposium with a variety of subjects, variety of themes, and congratulations for first Father Jacob. Every year I come here, I see this institution growing larger, greater, and bigger. And I can say it is because of Father Jacob and his equipe, especially Father Raju and all who are working here in Syria. I congratulate you and will take you as an example for us to continue our work with the same courage that you have. I will profit of this occasion to invite all of you, and the one who didn't receive the invitation, please leave me on a paper your email for our 5th symposium at the Holy Spirit University from the 3rd to the 8th of next February. Okay. Now we announce it, but we didn't give the details. But very soon, next month, please, the one who would like to attend and didn't receive an invitation, give me or send to me your email, and you are all welcome. And after we send you the details for this symposium in Castile, Lebanon, in February. Congratulations again. Thank you for everything. I thank all the lecturers because everybody collaborated or cooperated in his subject, in his team, in his researches, which is all the subjects are a richness, a wealth for all of us in Syriac studies, in Syriac tradition, and God bless Seeri and Father Jacob and all of us. Thank you.
We actually have time for one or two more. Then Dr. Brock is going to speak to us.
Every time I come to Syria, there is a new building, which is a sign of wonderful expansion of Syria. And I'd like particularly to congratulate Father Jacob on the excellency of his choice of whoever the architect is. This is the one really beautiful building that I have seen in Kottayam. There's one suggestion I have, and it goes back to an earlier conference I was at Syria, and that was when we had a recital of Ephraim, but in Malayalam, translated from English to Malayalam. And I found it, even though I don't know a word of Malayalam, an incredibly beautiful experience. And just as a suggestion, not necessarily in the context of the Syriac conferences, but it might be a way of getting local people interested in the Syriac tradition by having an evening of recitals, perhaps including music, because another wonderful occasion at a former conference, we had a small concert here with Father Philip Leisner playing and also playing Carnatic music and also singing Ephraim's poems instead of the normal poems that would be sung at such a concert. And that too was a really beautiful experience. So those two media might be ways of expanding the interest and local awareness of Syria's role. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who would like to offer an evaluation before we move on to the vote of thanks?
Your Beatitudes, distinguished guests, dear colleagues, I would like to thank Father Jacob for giving me the opportunity to participate in this conference. This is my first time to come to Syria, but last year we had Ethiopic Syriac conference in Ethiopia. So this connection has been for us very enriching and very important. So we started a research center last year, and the inaugural, the first important event was this conference. So we want to learn a lot from Syria, and we have already started an intensive course of Ethiopic, classical Ethiopic, for scholars from abroad as well as from Ethiopia. So in the future we are planning to continue that line, course, not only an intensive course, but a 1 year, 2 years course. So contact us if you are interested in studying classical Ethiopic, and we will welcome you. At the same time, the exchange will be more and more enriching. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else before we...
Harald Zomer, I present the Institute of Missiology, Mission, and the Pontifical Work of Mission. We were accompanying series, I think, since the beginnings, and we, after 25 years, we hope it is grown up, and as what we have seen in the 8th conference, it is growing up, it is expanding. What we like is that the local church takes much more in their hands the functionality. That means that they assure the local church the functioning of this very important institute. I think the grown-up child is not that it lives on its own. So I hope that it is possible in the future. We will try to accompany it again for the next years, but as you know, the situation in our countries, it will be short less. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Shall we move on to the vote of thanks? Okay. This year, the vote of thanks will be given by the Assistant Director of Syria, Reverend Father Raju Parakot.
Your Beatitude, more and more Basilius Cardinal Cases, Catholicos of the Syro-Malankara Catholic Church, Your Beatitude, Basilius Thomas I, Catholicos of the Malankara Syrian Orthodox Church, Honorable Justice Alexander Thomas, Bishop John Fenwick of the Free Church of England, His Grace Matthews Mar Andimos, Professor Dr. Sebastian Brock, Professor Muriel Davy, Professor Abdo Balbi, other distinguished guests and friends. First of all, I would like to thank His Beatitude Moran Basilius Cardinal Clemis Catholicos of the Syro-Malankara Catholic Church, who is also the President of Kerala Catholic Bishops' Council and the Catholic Bishops' Conference of India, and a member of the Congregation of the Oriental Churches and the Pontifical Council for Interreligious Dialogue. All here are very grateful for his guidance and leadership as the patron of Syri in conducting this prestigious conference. We thank him for presiding over this function and for delivering the presidential address and releasing the second volume of Ausar Slavos. The Syrian Orthodox Church has been helping Syri from the very start in its mission to promote Syriac studies. In this 8th World Syriac Conference, His Grace Isaac Mar Eustathios celebrated Kurbana for the delegates, and His Grace Thomas Mar Timotheos hosted a wonderful reception in St. Mary's Church, Managad. Today, His Grace Matthews Mar Antimos is attending this concluding session, and on Monday, the seminary of the Syrian Orthodox Church will graciously host a lunch for our excursion. Also supper. By your beatitude. In the initial stages of Syri, His Beatitude Basilius Thomas Catholicos, when he was the Bishop of Kottayam, he used to send students in Syri. Today I want to say a special word of thanks to His Beatitude, because this is his first visit to Syri and we are delighted to welcome him. We also call to mind his predecessor, Basilius Paulos II, who even addressed us in Syriac in 1987 for the first Syriac World Conference. We are deeply grateful that Your Excellency blessed us with his benedictory speech, Taudi Sagi Kumarom Alio. We are deeply honored that Mr. Sri Tiruvanjur Radhakrishnan came here today. He is a distinguished public representative and has worked untiringly for the prosperity and good of Kottayam. We also wish to express our appreciation for the central government for granting visas to our participants, thus enabling them to attend this conference. I would like to say a special word of thanks to all the members of Kottayam Municipality and to its chairperson Santosh Kumar. I think they are going to welcome us in few minutes. Justice Mr. Alexander Thomas, Kerala High Court, has been a constant presence over the course of this conference. Not only did he participate in the lectures, but also acted as a moderator for one of these sessions, addressed us on the future Syriac studies, and even delivered one of our felicitation speeches today. On behalf of Syri, I wish to thank him most sincerely for his generous presence and active participation. I thank each and every one of the scholars who have presented learned papers over the course of this conference. Their contribution has added greatly to our knowledge of Syriac studies and has made this conference truly valuable. The papers presented by them will be published in our prestigious journal, The Harp, and so will be made them available to the wider public. The papers will be an important resource to our MA and PhD students here at Seeri. As well as the presenters, we are also grateful to all our moderators who chaired the various sessions. I wish to thank Professor Dr. Muriel Devi, Professor Ebi Rifat, Father John Vatangi, SJ, Professor Erika Hunter, Professor Pablo Argatre, Professor Abdo Balbi, Professor Dr. Sebastian Brock, Professor Daniel Asafa, Dr. Harold Schwerman, who have given their valuable evaluations of this conference. We will take into account and reflect upon their critiques and remarks. Their contributions will no doubt assist us greatly in our planning of future conferences. I am particularly grateful for the services of Mr. K.P. Fabian, the former Indian ambassador to Italy and to various Middle Eastern countries. His help in organizing this conference, together with our director, Reverend Dr. Jacob Tekkeparamil, has been invaluable. I thank him sincerely on behalf of Seeri for his generous service and guidance. Each evening of the conference, we were hosted by various churches and received nourishment for our bodies and souls. I want to thank Marthoma Theological Seminary, Pudupalli St. George Orthodox Church, Manargad St. Mary's Church, St. Joseph's CMI Monastery Manaram, St. Alphonsus Shrine Bharanangaram. I especially want to mention His Holiness Basilios Paulos II, the Catholicos of the Malangara Syrian Orthodox Church, who received our guests in St. George Orthodox Church at Pudupalli. I thank the various choirs who sang so beautifully at Kurbana, at prayer song and at new prayer. The chanting of our ancient Syriac melodies enriched our conference. Father M.P. George, Shruti, Sumoro, MOC students, monks and nuns of Uddhanashram, Father Kuriakos and the choir of St. George Orthodox Church, Anikat. They were the choir members who were present here. I thank all the members of the organizing committee of this 8th World Syriac Conference. They worked tirelessly for its smooth running and success. Please forgive me if I do not mention each one by name. I fear I might omit someone. Thank you each and all for your generous contribution. Those mentioned by name in the program and those who worked quietly away in the background. I am sure I speak on all our behalf when I wish them heartfelt thanks. In spite of this, I would like to mention one name one person, Father Senan Farlow, a Benedictine monk from Ireland, who is spending the time of his sabbatical year for Syriac studies in Syria. Since his arrival in Syria in August, he was tirelessly assisting Father Jacob as his right hand for all kinds of jobs without any time schedule. As you all know, he was also the official announcer of the programs of this conference. On behalf of Syria and all gathered here, I extend a heartfelt gratitude to Reverend Father Senan William Farlow. Finally, our director, Reverend Dr. Jacob Tekeparambil, as you all know, is the heart and soul of this institute and this conference. He is a great lover of Syriac and an indefatigable champion of its cause. His dedication to Syria and his untiring work for this conference are a true labor of love. As the cord of a garland that binds the different colored flowers, Father Jacob draws together all the Syriac churches in Kerala, uniting them for the promotion of Syriac studies. The Conference of Syria is therefore the conference of all the 7 Syriac churches of Kerala. Let us express our affection for and appreciation of this wonderful man, Malpono Rabo, Father Jacob Tekeparambil. Finally, I want to thank you, our participants, for your presence and participation in this conference. We hope you enjoyed your time with us as much as we enjoyed having you here. It is our hope and prayer that this conference will bear fruit for each one of you. Thank you, Manadol Taudi Sagi. Let us all meet together in 2018 as you share your dreams fulfilled. Thank you, one and all.
Syriac hymn is printed in the back side of the program sheet. A tool like Syeri, that hymn is written by our Melphone and Dr. Sebastian Brock. The music is a little bit hard, so I will sing first and you will join with me. Agree? Yes. Thank you. Tu by Syeri, Beth Maruduto, Iagbahendu, Perhak Lodutoa, Shli Hoshubiho. Once more I will sing, if you agree. Thank you. Tu by Syeri, Beth Maruduto, Iagbahendu, Perhak Lodutoa, Shli Hoshubiho. Then we will stand up and sing for Syeri, the hymn, Syeri hymn, the first stanza. Please join with me. Tu by Syeri, Beth Maruduto, Iagbahendu, Perhak Lodutoa, Shli Hoshubiho. Tu by Syeri, the heart of the
we conclude the 8th World Syriac Conference. Thank you. And we conclude with the benediction prayer.
Blessing. Please give
The
us
beatitude will give the blessing.
പിതാവായ ദൈവത്തിന്റെ സ്നേഹവും ഏകജാതനായ പുത്രന്റെ കൃപയും പൂർണ്ണവും പരിപൂർണവുമാക്കുന്ന പരിശുദ്ധമായ സംബന്ധവും സഹവാസവും ശുദ്ധദേവമാതാവിന്റെ സർവപരിശുദ്ധന്മാരുടെ ശുദ്ധികളുടെയും പ്രാർത്ഥന മുഖാന്തരം കർത്താവേ നിന്റെ കൃപാടിയങ്ങളോടുകൂടെ ഇതെന്ന് നമ്മളുണ്ടായിരിക്കുമാറാകണമേ.
your beatitudes. Thank you very much for coming and blessing us. And beatitude Baselios Martoma the first. ഞങ്ങൾ തിങ്കളാഴ്ച വൈകിട്ട് ക്ഷണം സ്വീകരിച്ച് അവിടെ വരുന്നതായിരിക്കും എന്ന് സ്നേഹത്തോടെ അറിയിക്കുന്നു.